It was a Sunday afternoon when my mother dropped the kind of news that splits a family in two. We were sitting in her living room, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains, the smell of freshly brewed coffee still hanging in the air. My niece had just dropped her spoon, and the clatter against the saucer echoed like a warning bell. Mum sat at the head of the table, her hair pinned neatly, her hands folded as if in prayer. She looked at me, then at my brother and younger sister, and with a calm smile she said the words that changed everything. I'm getting married. At first, I thought she meant someone from her senior group, maybe an old friend she'd reconnected with. But then she leaned back, eyes glowing, and added, "His name is Tom. He's 47. The silence was suffocating. My brother's jaw dropped. My sister's face went pale, and I felt my heart stumble in my chest. "Mum," I managed to whisper, "he's younger than me." She nodded, her smile unwavering. Age is just a number. Tom makes me feel alive again. Alive. That was her word. But to us, it sounded like danger. In that moment, 1,000 questions tore through my mind. Was Tom sincere? Or was he here to take advantage of her? What did he see in a 72-year-old widow except the house she owned outright and the savings she'd worked a lifetime for? I remembered seeing her phone light up late at night, her laughter drifting down the hallway, the way she dressed a little brighter these past months. I'd ignored it, thinking it was innocent. Now, all the ignored signs came crashing back. My brother's fist tightened on the tablecloth. My sister's lips trembled. I tried to steady my breathing, but the air felt too thin, as if the walls had closed in. And then Tom himself walked in, holding a bouquet of roses, his smile wide, his eyes scanning each of us as if measuring our reaction. That was the moment the battle line was drawn. Before that Sunday, I thought I understood my mother's life. For 12 years since my father passed, she lived quietly in her suburban home, the same white house with blue shutters where we all grew up. Her days followed a rhythm. Morning walks with the neighbour's dog, afternoons gardening, evenings watching old movies with a cup of chamomile tea. I'm the eldest daughter, 45, married with 2 kids and a job that keeps me busy. My brother, Daniel, is 42. A pragmatic man who works in construction and prides himself on being the protector of the family. My younger sister, Lily, is 38, soft-spoken, empathetic, and maybe too trusting for her own good. We all assumed Mum's life was predictable, maybe lonely at times, but safe. She had her church group, her book club, and us. We thought that was enough. Looking back, I realise how blind we were. It started with small things. A few months ago, I noticed her phone lighting up late at night. She'd smile, blush even, then set it face down when I walked into the room. Once, I caught a glimpse of the name Tom on her screen, but I brushed it off. I told myself she deserved some privacy. That was my first mistake. Daniel was the first to sense something was off. He saw her pulling cash from the ATM more often, slipping folded bills into her purse with a secretive look. He confronted her once, but she waved him off. "Don't be ridiculous," she told him. "I know what I'm doing." His flaw is that he always assumes danger first, and so when Mum dismissed him, he backed off. But resentment brewed. Lily, on the other hand, saw only joy. "Isn't it wonderful," she said one evening, when Mom dressed up in a bright red sweater we hadn't seen her wear in years. "She's glowing. Maybe she's found love again." Lily's flaw is her belief that kindness can fix everything. And me? My flaw was believing that family always knows best, that we, her children, could guide her better than she could guide herself. I ignored the signs. The new dresses arriving in shopping bags, the sudden trips to visit friends, the way she seemed to float through the house humming to herself. One afternoon, my daughter asked her grandmother, "Grandma, why are you always smiling at your phone?" Mom laughed it off, but my chest tightened. I knew then that something was happening, something I didn't understand, but I stayed silent, complicit in my own denial. When she finally told us about Tom, I realised the truth had been unfolding right under my nose. And worse, I had let it. The cracks began to show not long after Mum's announcement. One evening, while clearing the dining table, I noticed an envelope tucked beneath her placemat. It slipped slightly, revealing a bank logo. I froze. When I picked it up, the balance sheet showed a transfer, several $1,000s, to Tom's account. My stomach dropped. When I asked her about it later, she waved it off. "He needed help catching up on bills," she said. "It's nothing. Don't look at me like that," Daniel exploded. "Nothing? Mom, he's 47 years old, a grown man. Why does he need your retirement savings to pay his bills?" Her eyes hardened. "Because he's had a hard life, Daniel. He deserves a chance." Tom himself arrived the next evening, flashing that easy smile. I confronted him quietly in the kitchen. "Are you using her?" I demanded. He laughed, setting a glass down with a deliberate clink. "You think I need her money? Your mother is happier than she's been in years. Shouldn't that be enough for you?" His words burned. They were carefully chosen, not a denial, but a deflection. That night, lying awake, I wrestled with myself. Should I step in to protect her, or respect her freedom, even if it led to disaster? The internal conflict gnawed at me, the pull between daughterly duty and adult respect. Then came the near mistake. While Mom napped, I reached for her phone on the coffee table, desperate for answers. But just as my thumb hovered over the screen, her eyes fluttered open. "Emily," she asked, her voice fragile. I forced a smile, setting the phone back. Just checking the time. But guilt chewed at me. I had become someone who snooped in her own mother's things. At dinner that weekend, Tom joined us. He raised his glass, smiling at Lily. "To new beginnings," he said. Daniel scoffed. "Yeah, new beginnings with someone else's money." Mum slammed her fork down. "Enough!" The air was so tense it felt brittle, ready to shatter. My sister shifted uncomfortably, torn between siding with Mum's happiness and our growing fear. Later, while helping clear dishes, Lily whispered to me, "Maybe he really does love her." "Don't ruin this for her, Emily." But the final blow came a few days later. I learned through a colleague that Tom had once worked at a nearby dealership and had been let go under suspicious circumstances. The picture sharpened. He wasn't just struggling. He had a pattern, and the crack in our family trust widened into a fault line. Proof has a way of slipping into your hands when you're desperate enough to look for it. The first clue came from Mrs. Green, our nosy but well-meaning neighbour. She leaned across the fence one morning as I pulled weeds in Mum's garden. "I saw Tom last week," she whispered. "Downtown. He wasn't with your mother. Some woman in a short dress, hanging on his arm." Her voice dropped. "Be careful." I wanted to dismiss it as gossip, but the image stayed with me, gnawing at my chest. The second piece of evidence arrived late one night. Mum had left her purse on the counter, and while grabbing my own coat, I noticed a crumpled envelope sticking out. Inside were overdue credit card bills, not Mom's, but Tom's. His name was clear at the top, the balances drowning in red ink. My heart pounded as I slipped them back into place. The third link in the chain came from Daniel. He'd been digging too, though he wouldn't admit it at first. One evening he shoved a printout across the table. "Bank records," he muttered. "Joint transfers. She's moved over $15,000 to his account in the last 3 months." I stared at the numbers, my pulse roaring in my ears. But my attempt to confront Mom backfired. I grabbed one of Tom's overdue notices and waved it in front of her. "Mum, look at this. He's drowning in debt. Don't you see what's happening?" Her face went pale, but then flushed with anger. She snatched the paper from my hand. "How dare you go through his things? This is my life, Emily, not yours. Tom loves me for who I am. Can't you accept that?" The room spun. My sister Lily stood frozen, torn between us. Daniel shook his head, muttering under his breath. I stormed out, humiliated, the evidence burning in my hand like a weapon that had turned against me. Later that week, desperate for clarity, I reached out to an old acquaintance, a notary named Paul, who had once handled paperwork for Dad. I showed him copies of the documents Daniel had found. He skimmed them, frowning. "This isn't unusual for someone struggling financially," he said carefully, "but combined with your mother's transfers, it raises questions. Questions, not answers." That night, sitting in my car outside Mum's house, I reread her text from earlier that day. "Please stop digging. You're only making this harder." Her words hit me like a slap. Harder for who? For her or for Tom? I closed my eyes and remembered Dad's steady hands teaching me how to ride a bike, his voice telling me, "Take care of your mum when I can't." Now, years later, it felt like I was failing him and her. And yet, a part of me wondered if I was wrong. Maybe Tom truly loved her. Maybe Mum's choice wasn't about being deceived, but about finding happiness where we couldn't give it. The evidence didn't just expose Tom, it exposed me, my fear, my guilt, my desperation to hold on to the woman who had given me everything. And still, the proof was there, undeniable. Tom had secrets, and if I didn't act soon, my mother might lose more than just her savings. I thought the evidence would be enough to wake her up. Instead, it only drove her further away from me. A few days after our confrontation, Mum invited me over. I expected another argument. Instead, she handed me a small leather journal. Her handwriting sprawled across the pages. "I want you to read this," she said softly. "Not now. Later. When you're calm." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the journal heavy in my hands. Candlelight flickered across the words as I began to read. Page after page she had written about Tom, not just his struggles, but his kindness, the way he drove her to the doctor without complaint, how he cooked her soup when she was sick, how he held her hand during church services. One entry made my throat tighten. "Tom worries about money, but he never hides it from me. He says he feels ashamed, but I told him I don't need wealth. I need companionship. At my age, love is a gift I didn't expect to find again." I blinked back tears, flipping to another page. "My children think they know best, but they don't understand how lonely these years have been. Tom makes me feel seen, not invisible. If helping him financially gives us time together, then it's worth it." The words twisted everything I thought I knew. Had I been fighting to protect her, or had I been trying to control her? Daniel's voice echoed in my head. "He's using her." But here, in black and white, was her voice. "He loves me, and I love him." I slammed the journal shut, my chest heaving. Maybe Mum wasn't blind. Maybe she wasn't a victim. Maybe she was choosing this, eyes wide open. The realization shook me. For weeks, I had seen Tom as the antagonist. But what if Mum had written herself into this story willingly? What if, in her eyes, we were the ones standing in the way of her happiness? The lines blurred, love or manipulation, freedom or foolishness, protector or jailer. For the first time, I didn't know which side I was on. The journal left me torn in half. On one side was the evidence of Tom's debts, the gossip about another woman, the bank transfers. On the other side was Mom's voice, raw and unfiltered, declaring that love was worth the risk. I couldn't untangle it on my own, so I called Karen, my oldest friend. Divorced 5 years ago after her husband left her for someone younger, she met me at our usual cafe, sliding into the booth across from me with her no-nonsense energy. I pushed the journal toward her. She read silently, her brow furrowed, her lips pressed tight. Finally, she closed it and sighed. "Emily," she said, "I get why you're scared, but maybe this isn't about you saving her. Maybe it's about you learning to let her live her life. She's 72, she knows what she's doing, even if it breaks your heart. It's her choice." Her words stung, but I couldn't ignore the other voice in my head, Daniel's, calling Tom a fraud, a parasite. Meanwhile, the whispers around town grew louder. At the grocery store, 2 women I barely knew exchanged glances when I walked past. At church, Mrs. Ellis patted my hand and murmured, "Don't worry, dear." These May-December things never last. The whole community seemed to know about my mother's engagement, as if her love life were a public spectacle. The tension inside our family escalated. One evening, Daniel arrived at Mum's house with a folder under his arm. He slapped it onto the dining table in front of Tom. "Bankruptcies. 2 of them. You think we wouldn't find out?" Tom's face reddened. "That was years ago. I've worked hard to rebuild." "On my mother's dime," Daniel shot back. Mum's eyes blazed. "Enough. This is between me and Tom, not you." The fight spiraled, voices overlapping until Lily burst into tears. She pleaded for peace, saying, "All I see is Mom smiling again. Doesn't that matter?" Her words cut me deep. I wanted to believe her, to believe that happiness was simple. But I couldn't ignore the pit in my stomach. A week later, Tom invited us all to a dinner party at a local restaurant. He said he wanted to prove his intentions. The room was decorated with fairy lights, roses on each table, champagne glasses lined up like soldiers. He toasted Mom, his voice loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "To love that knows no age," he said, raising his glass, "and to family that learns to embrace it." The guests clapped politely, but at our table, the silence was deafening. Daniel muttered, "This is a show." Mum squeezed Tom's hand. "It's real." For a brief moment, I wanted to believe it too. Maybe this was the resolution. Maybe Tom would prove us wrong and we could all move forward. But halfway through the evening, as I excused myself to the restroom, I overheard a waiter whispering to another, "That's the guy who stiffed us last year, left without paying a bill." My chest tightened. The false resolution cracked before it even took root. Back at the table, Tom smiled as if nothing was wrong, but I saw the tension in his jaw, the quick glance he threw at the door, calculating. The web was widening. From my mother's heart to my siblings' loyalty, from our family table to the entire community, and I realised this wouldn't stay private much longer. The wedding day arrived like a storm none of us could stop. The chapel was small, decorated with white roses and flickering candles. Guests whispered as they filled the pews, their eyes darting between my 72-year-old mother in a cream dress and the man nearly 3 decades younger standing proudly beside her. I sat in the front row, my hands gripping the pew so tightly my knuckles ached. Daniel leaned forward, jaw clenched, while Lily wrung her hands in her lap. Every nerve in my body screamed that we were about to lose her, not to death, but to a choice we couldn't undo. The ceremony began. The pastor's voice echoed through the room. Tom's smile gleamed as he slid a gold band onto Mom's trembling finger. But before she could do the same, Daniel stood. His voice thundered through the chapel. "Stop this! Mom, you don't know what you're doing." Gasps rippled through the room. Mom froze, her eyes flashing with both shock and anger. "Daniel, sit down," she ordered, but he didn't. He pulled a folder from his coat and dropped it onto the altar table. Papers spilled out, bankruptcy records, unpaid bills, and a printed statement from the restaurant that had flagged Tom last month. The room erupted, Guests whispered, the pastor shifted uneasily, and Mum's hands shook. Tom's face turned crimson. "This is an ambush," he snapped. "You dig into my past like vultures and twist it against me," Daniel shot back. "Your past is a warning, not a mistake. You're using her, and we all know it." I rose to my feet, my voice trembling. "Mom, please, look at this. Look at us. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to save you." But Mum's gaze cut through me. "Save me? From love? From happiness? Emily, I know exactly what I'm doing." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then Tom made his mistake. His voice cracked as he turned toward Mom, gripping her hands too tightly. "I need this, Claire," he whispered harshly, unaware that the microphone picked up every word. "I need you. You're the only stability I have left." Gasps echoed again. His choice of words, not love, not devotion, but stability, struck like a blade. I saw Mum's face falter. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. Still, she lifted her chin. "You don't understand," she said to us, her voice breaking. "I've been invisible for years. With Tom, I feel seen, even if he needs me as much as I need him. Is that so wrong?" Her confession hit me harder than any revelation. It wasn't just about Tom. It was about her loneliness, her hunger for meaning, her desperation to feel alive again. The pastor cleared his throat nervously. "Shall we continue?" Mom hesitated, tears brimming. Tom squeezed her hand, his face a mix of fear and defiance. I stepped closer, my voice raw. "Mom, please, if this is love, then let it be love. But don't give him everything without protecting yourself. Dad asked me to take care of you when he was gone. Don't make me fail him." Her lips trembled. She looked at Daniel, whose eyes pleaded with fury. She looked at Lily, who sat sobbing quietly, whispering, "Just be happy, Mom." And then she turned back to Tom. In that instant, the entire room held its breath. Mum slid the ring onto his finger anyway. The chapel exploded in murmurs. Shock, judgment, pity. My heart shattered as applause broke out among Tom's friends, drowning out my brother's curses. But even as she smiled weakly, her eyes flickered toward me, uncertain, questioning, almost apologizing. The vows were spoken, the kiss exchanged, the marriage sealed, but nothing about it felt whole. The wedding was over, but the fallout had only begun. In the days that followed, the shock waves rippled through every corner of our lives. Neighbours whispered, church members speculated, and relatives from out of state called to ask if the rumours were true. Daniel was relentless. He contacted a family attorney and demanded that Mum's finances be protected. "If she won't protect herself," he said, slamming his fist on my kitchen counter, "then we have to." The lawyer explained that while we couldn't undo the marriage, we could create a trust for certain assets. If she agrees, parts of her estate can be shielded from new claims, he said. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Convincing Mum, however, was another battle. When we presented the idea, she bristled. "You think Tom is a thief," she said, her voice trembling, "but I see him for who he is. Flawed, yes, but loving. Why can't you?" Lily stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Mom, we just don't want to lose everything Dad worked for. You taught us to be careful. Please let us help." Her plea softened Mom. She agreed reluctantly to meet with the lawyer, though she made it clear she wouldn't leave Tom. Meanwhile, the community divided. Some whispered that Mum was reckless, blinded by desperation. Others admired her courage. "She deserves happiness," one church friend told me, no matter what age. But the judgment lingered like smoke. At home, my niece tugged on my sleeve one evening. "Is Tom really my grandpa now?" she asked innocently. I froze, unsure how to answer. "Yes," I finally whispered. "In a way." Her wide eyes held both confusion and acceptance. The legal steps began. Papers were signed. Assets were secured in trust. Tom bristled during the meetings, muttering about mistrust and being treated like a criminal, but he didn't walk away. That in itself spoke volumes. Daniel revealed his own hidden truth during one of those tense nights. Sitting on my porch, a beer in his hand, he muttered, "I'm not just angry at Tom, I'm scared. When Dad died, I promised myself I'd keep her safe. If I can't, then what good am I?" His voice cracked, revealing the weight he carried. More than anger, it was fear of failure. Lily, too, faced her own reckoning. She confessed through tears. "I wanted to believe in the fairy tale, maybe because I'm tired of fighting with my own husband. Seeing Mum happy felt like proof that love could fix everything, but I know now it's not that simple." Their hidden truths shifted the dynamic. We weren't just siblings at war with Tom. We were children wrestling with our own flaws, reflected back at us through Mum's choices. In the end, Mum and Tom remained married, but the trust gave us a measure of peace, a safeguard against the worst outcomes. Tom still hovered around the house, still smiling, still trying to fit in. Sometimes he seemed genuine, other times calculating. The ambiguity never left. For Mom, though, the outcome was clear. She had chosen love, or at least the version of it she believed in. Whether it was a gift or a gamble, only time would tell. The house felt different the day I visited after the wedding. White roses from the ceremony still sat wilting in a vase on the mantel. The air carried a strange mix. The scent of Mom's lavender candles and Tom's aftershave, two worlds colliding under one roof. I walked slowly through the living room, trailing my hand across the quilt draped on the couch, the one Mom refused to part with. For years, I had seen her as fragile, someone to guard. Now I saw her differently, still vulnerable, yes, but also stubborn, determined to shape her own story, even if it meant rewriting ours. Sitting across from her that afternoon, I felt the dual pull inside me, grief for the certainty we'd lost, and a strange flicker of empowerment. Maybe it wasn't about saving her, maybe it was about learning that love, even messy love, belongs to the person living it, not the ones watching from the sidelines. Tom hovered in the kitchen, offering us tea. His presence still unsettled me, but I no longer saw him as just a villain. His flaws were written all over him: desperation, pride, fear, human, like the rest of us. Mum reached for my hand. Her palm was warm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Emily," she said softly, "I know you don't agree, but I need you to trust that I've thought this through. I don't want to be invisible anymore. And with Tom, I'm not." Her words pierced me. For so long, I had defined her life through my lens of protection. But she wanted something else: visibility, choice, even risk. As I drove away that evening, the setting sun cast long shadows across the road. I whispered to myself, rings can bind, or they can free. And I realised this chapter wasn't truly closed. Their marriage might flourish or collapse. We might grow closer again or drift further apart. The only certainty was uncertainty. But one thing lingered above all else. The question I can't stop asking, and the one I'll leave for you. If your 72-year-old mother married a man 25 years younger, would you fight it or let her live her choice?